Immigration is reshaping Europe in ways too shocking to ignore. We all see the data. Across nearly all European countries, the share of the native population is declining. And no, this isn't just another chapter in Europe's long history of migration. What we're witnessing today is a demographic shift of massive scale and speed, primarily driven by non-European immigration. Some dismiss these changes, claiming Europe has always experienced waves of immigration and refugees. People are fixated on this, but it turns out it's not true. On the other hand, some people say it's a deliberate population replacement for a bigger, sinister plan. The truth lies somewhere in between these extremes. To cut through the noise, I've dug into the hard data. This is the story of Europe's demographic revolution. In 2022, Europe saw an unprecedented influx of immigrants. The European Union and the United Kingdom recorded over 5 million new arrivals combined. Germany and Spain were among the top destinations, with Germany alone receiving over 2 million immigrants. France and Italy followed closely, with significant numbers as well. The UK alone accounted for nearly 600,000 new immigrants, marking one of the highest annual figures in recent history. If I compare these numbers with those of the US, we see that the foreign-born population in the EU is about 13% of the total population. The UK's foreign-born population is slightly higher, at approximately 14%. By contrast, the US also has about 13.9% of its population born outside the country. However, while the overall percentages might seem similar, the rate of immigration in Europe has increased significantly in recent years. Between 2010 and 2022, the foreign-born population in the EU grew by over 25% compared to a 15.6% growth in the US over the same period. This rapid influx is leading to significant demographic shifts in Europe in a much shorter time frame compared to the more gradual changes historically seen in the US. Several factors contribute to this high level of immigration in Europe. 1. The Schengen area. The Schengen Agreement allows for passport-free travel across most EU countries, making it easier for immigrants to move once they enter Europe. This open border policy has facilitated the flow of people seeking better opportunities or refuge. 2. Historical waves. Europe has a long history of migration, but recent years have seen an acceleration due to conflicts in the Middle East, Africa, and parts of Asia. Economic disparities and political instability in these regions drive many to seek safety and stability in Europe. And the last one, the economic opportunities. Europe's strong economies attract immigrants looking for work and better living conditions. Countries like Germany, with its robust labor market, acts as magnets for those seeking employment. Now, understanding where these immigrants to Europe are coming from is essential to grasp the full impact of the demographic changes they bring. As of recent data, approximately 38 million people residing in the EU were born outside its borders. This accounts for 8.5% of the EU's total population. It is noteworthy that certain countries stand out in terms of their non-EU populations. Germany, for instance, has the highest number of non-EU immigrants, with 13.9 million residents born outside the EU. France and Italy follow, each hosting around 7 million non-EU immigrants. On the other end of the spectrum, countries like Poland and Slovakia have relatively low numbers of non-EU immigrants, with less than 1% of their populations born outside the EU. This stark contrast underscores the uneven distribution of non-EU immigrants across Europe. This information doesn't give a complete picture and leads to misinformation. So I looked deeper into the topic and focused on some country-specific case studies. In the UK, the proportion of people with a migration background is significantly higher in urban areas, like London. Here, over 35% of the population is either foreign-born or has at least one foreign-born parent, an increase from 34.2% in 2021. Denmark presents another interesting case. While the overall number of immigrants is lower than in the UK, the impact is still notable, with 22% of babies born in Denmark in 2020 born to mothers with a foreign background. Bear in mind that in 1990, this figure was just 8%. France offers yet another perspective. Although there is a long history of immigration from former colonies to blame for that, France has a diverse population, so much that nearly 50% of people in cities like Paris have a migration background. Of course, the multi-generational impact of this presents itself evidently in various aspects of society, from education to employment, influencing everything from cultural identity to economic opportunity. But we will yet get to that. Because another crucial aspect to consider is the birth rates among natives and immigrants, which play a significant role in future demographic projections. Immigrants typically have higher birth rates compared to native populations. For instance, in Germany, the birth rate for immigrant women is around 2.2 children per woman, compared to 1.4 for native German women. In France, about 30% of births are from immigrant mothers, while in the United Kingdom, this number is about 25%. Research also shows an increase in births of mixed race and mixed heritage children. In cities like London and Paris, a significant percentage of children are born to parents of different ethnic backgrounds. Remember, we just saw in this video how immigrants are giving birth to more children compared to indigenous, but also immigrants and indigenous are also coming together to give birth. So naturally, the future generation is expected to have a lot more immigrants and mixed race individuals than Europe has ever seen. It brings both opportunities and challenges. On one hand, it will promote cultural exchange and economic growth. On the other hand, it can lead to tensions and debates about integration and social cohesion. Also, the high visibility of immigrants in cities can shape public perception and political discourse around immigration. Research also shows that the current generation of immigrants is integrating well into their host country. The number of marriages gives an idea of how different immigrant groups are mixing with the native population. When you compare first and second generation immigrants, you will see notable differences. First generation immigrants tend to maintain stronger ties to their cultural roots and are less likely to marry outside their ethnic group. However, things are changing with the second generation immigrants, who are born and raised in the host country. They show higher rates of intermarriage. This points to a gradual blending of cultures over generations, which helps create a more integrated society. Other important factors in the integration process are language skills, education, and employment, society's attitude towards immigrants, and the presence of supportive community networks. Religion and cultural traditions can sometimes be a challenge for integration, especially in societies where they differ greatly from the mainstream. We see that immigrants can reach Europe relatively easily, and that their population keeps growing. The rapid increase in immigrants has a big impact on Europe, and is seen as a burden by more and more countries. In many countries, healthcare is overloaded. Schools have overcrowded classrooms, which is becoming a bigger problem. We also see a trend where many European countries face a housing crisis. Many cities, especially those with a high concentration of immigrants, have a housing shortage. This drives up rent and property prices, making affordable housing scarcer. Cities like Berlin and Paris, for example, have seen a strong increase in demand for housing, which makes the shortages worse and adds to social tensions. In the future, we see that various factors will affect the demographic makeup of Europe. The migration process plays a crucial role in this. We already see that many European countries have strict immigration policies, but it remains to be seen if they will continue. Second, the economic conditions in both Europe and the immigrants' home countries will influence migration patterns. Economic downturns or political instability in regions like the Middle East and Africa can push more people to seek a better life in Europe. On the other hand, improvements in these regions could reduce the flow of migrants. The potential for further diversification or cultural blending is significant. As the second and third generations of immigrants grow, integration into European society will lead to a mixed cultural landscape. This is only a matter of time. Questions about values and cultural identity will remain. The debates and underlying issues will only get bigger. Some fear that increasing diversity could dilute national cultures, while others argue that it enriches society by bringing in new perspectives and ideas. Europe's policies on this demographic transformation will determine the future of Europe.